Hi, my name is Monica Duarte and I'm a brand identity alchemist and spiritual coach, and I'm here to assist you in transforming your life and brand from the inside out. In today's video, I'm going to talk about a kind of sensitive subject for some people, and it's something that we go through our lives and some people don't ever get out of, and that is the idea of being fake and wanting to fit in, and how to break free from this toxic cycle. Now, before we get started, I just want you to know that it's normal in our journey, in our lives, to want to be accepted or to want to fit in to a certain point. Like when we're kids, that's normal. We're trained, our brains are trained to do that. That's how we survive. But after a certain point, that has to be let go, and we have to be able to get to know ourselves and build a life that feels authentic and honest with ourselves. And some people may not think it's a big deal, but I can tell you from my own experience that I've spoken with a lot of people and have actually helped a lot of people who were going through a phase in their lives where they felt like they weren't living a life that was authentic to them. They felt empty inside. They didn't really know who they were, and they wanted to know that. They realized that the life that they had wasn't in alignment with them anymore. So it is very important to actually look at this at some point in our lives. So today I'm going to share with you the 5 dangers of being fake, of continuing to be fake, and how to break free from that cycle if you are ready to do that, if you're ready to take that leap of faith and start to be more authentic and more honest with yourself. The first danger is that you start to lose a real sense of self. You see, the more that you try to fit in or to be a people pleaser, the more that you actually start to lose a sense of self. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to have, nice things or wanting to have a successful career. But when you build your life just around that and not around who you are and what you want, what's important to you, you start to feel a void inside you. Because you're giving parts of yourself away in exchange for that. And that's why you feel that. You start to feel that because your soul in you knows that you're doing something that doesn't feel right. It knows that you are compromising who you are. And you can try to cover that feeling, that void, that emptiness with pretty things, with money, with being successful, wanting to be liked by others. But here's the thing, that doesn't work because you cannot fill a void that's inside with things. You fill it in by getting to know yourself, by working on yourself and listening to that voice inside you and what it's telling you, what it's asking of you, this part of you. And I personally know this feeling all too well. I basically, due to survival purposes, and we all do this, but some of us, do it more because we have really difficult childhoods or growing up is really hard. I basically created my life around, what others wanted of me, to be a people pleaser, and to basically, for example, I went to college because it was my parents' dreams. It was also my dream too, but I included, they were a big part of that. It was like an expectation, and I'm so grateful that I went to college. But after I went to college and after I got my really nice job, and after I was living in, that world for a few years, I started to feel empty. I started to realize that I didn't know who I was, and to realize that after I was done with this goal, there was nothing. I had nothing to show for myself inside me. I had something to show in the outer world, but not in the inner world, in my inner world. I realized that I didn't know who I was, and because of that, I was dating the wrong people. I was choosing the wrong choices in my life after college, after working, in the corporate world. I just wasn't in alignment with myself because I didn't know who I was, because I had compromised my true self for others to fit in for survival purposes. The second danger is that you start to lose your direction in life. When you are living a fake life or a life that's not authentic to you, there's parts of you that are conflicting. There's parts of you that are telling you, hey, Be honest with yourself. Do the right thing. Do this because this is right for you. And then there's the parts of you that are telling you, no, no, no. Do this stuff because that's what is expected of you. Do this because it'll make you look better. Do this for whatever reason. And that really causes a lot of inner conflict, and it's really hard to make decisions or to even see yourself or others from a real healthy perspective. And that confusion makes you make decisions about yourself that are not authentic or honest with you. I also remember feeling this in my 20s, where I was such a big people pleaser that I literally had this inner conflict all the time in me of what, when I had to make decisions, like I didn't know what to do. I had this part of me that wanted to do something that was right for me, and then this part of me that wanted to continue to be a people pleaser and do what others expected of me so I could be nice and I could be liked and blah, blah, blah. And it just caused so much confusion and so much stress. It was just such a really difficult time in my life. The third danger is that you start to create a life that's not yours. And you can see this in people that go through midlife crises in their 40s or even 50s, where they look at their lives and they're like, what have I done with my life? Like, this is not at all what I wanted for myself. And what's actually happening is that because you're compromising yourself, because you're giving parts of yourself away to fit in or to be liked or whatever, whatever others are expecting of you, you start to lose or give up these parts of yourself, and you start to fill them in with other people's parts. And then what happens is, at some point when those people leave, you realize that you have this empty part in you because they were filling that void. But again, you cannot fill that void with somebody else's parts. You have to fill it in with you who you are. And when there's a void, that's because there's something there that's unknown. And it's our job as human beings, spiritual beings, to get to know those parts and understand them. So then basically you end up creating a life that doesn't really reflect or represent you. And sadly, a lot of people, again, go through this, and they start to be more honest when they're in their 50s. And it just makes it harder to shift. So it's good to, the first moment that you feel this, to look at it and understand it and get to know, why am I feeling this way, and get to know yourself on that deeper level. The fourth danger is that it can impact your emotional, your physical, and mental health. In my experience, when I wasn't being authentic with myself, I was actually dealing with some health issues. I was really depressed, and my self-esteem was basically in the trash because I didn't have really good thoughts about myself. Again, you have to remember that I had built this life on the expectations of others. And when you build your life, on something outside you, like, you can't control what people think about you. So you create these ideas of what they're thinking about you, which is actually really harmful and toxic to you. In the past years that I've also worked with people, I've also seen them go through this, where, we have sessions and they have these really they're really hard on themselves, and they have these really negative thoughts about themselves. And when we start to dig deep and understand what's going on, it's because they basically had created a life that wasn't authentic to them, or they weren't being honest with themselves, and they were just tired of it. So we looked at that and we started to make shifts so that they could create a life that was more in alignment with them and with their soul, and to be more authentic in their lives. The fifth danger is that you're most likely, if you're living a life that's not authentic with you, you could be doing that because of a trauma that you've experienced in your past, or you're experiencing a harmful pattern that's not healthy or good for you. Let me explain. Most of us don't become fake because we want to. We become fake because we're taught to, or because we had to survive in our childhoods and that's how we learn to survive, or because society imposes that on us. And it's really sad that society consistently imposes on us, like, what the perfect person looks like, what the perfect life looks like, what a successful person looks like, because that's really all trash. To be successful, all you have to do is just be yourself, be authentic, be honest with yourself, and build a life around that. Society is really good at teaching us that, if you want to be looked upon as successful, you got to have the right car, you got to have the right things, you got to have the right home, the right girlfriend or boyfriend. You have to make this much amount of money. And again, that's not true. Your sense of success does not come from the outer world. It comes from you internally. And when you do that, when you build it from internally, then you can build success out in your world in a really grounded, really solid place. And it's really important to understand that our value does not come from the things we have. Our value comes from how we value and treat ourselves. Because in the end, when it's our time to go to the other side, we don't take anything with us. We don't take your car, you don't take your money. The only thing you take is your experiences. And if you lived your life from a place where you've consistently been a people pleaser and sacrificed yourself and compromised yourself to be liked, I'm really sorry to say, but there's not a lot of value that you've experienced. And I know it sounds really hard, and I'm not trying to be rude or anything like that, but I'm just being honest. And I can tell you from a person, like I've experienced two near-death experiences. And I can tell you when you're really close to dying, you do think about those things. Those things become really real. And either you think about those things when you're, go through a near-death experience or when you're getting older. But these things are really important. It's really important to understand that our value is not based on things, or like being successful in the outer world. It's based on how we feel and think about ourselves and the experiences that we create in our lives from that place. And at least for me, I became fake or, inauthentic because I wanted to survive. When I was a kid, I knew that I was different. Right from when I was little, as the first time that I can remember my experiences, I knew I was different. I knew that the way that I thought was different. And when I would try to express myself and to express how I felt, people basically laughed at me or they thought I was weird. So eventually what I did to not feel that way is I stopped being or speaking out or expressing how I felt or being me. And I did that in order to survive, because again, when you're a kid, you just want, your main focus is to survive. And you need to have people, parents and family and, friends that support you in that. And when you don't have that, it creates a distortion. And that's when you start to be inauthentic and fake, again, just to survive. But at some point in our lives, we have to look at that, because at some point in our lives, we grow up and that doesn't work anymore. We can't continue on that path. We have to be able to redirect ourselves or correct that and start to live our lives based on who we are and being authentic with ourselves and creating our foundation from that place instead. But now that we talked about the 5 dangers of being fake, I'm going to share with you 5 tips or guidance or transformative tools that you can use to help you correct that and to help you break free from that toxic cycle. But before we go into these tips, if you like what you're hearing so far, please make sure to like this video to help me grow my channel, and make sure to subscribe to my channel because I do share more valuable content like this every week. So if you're looking to create a more authentic life for yourself, or you have a business that you're starting that you want it to be authentic with you, with your soul, I do share valuable content to help you with that. The first tip that I have for you to help you break free from this toxic cycle is to start to be honest with yourself. And I know this can be really hard. It's really hard to look at yourself in the mirror and realize that you don't know who you are, to realize that you've lived a life that's not really authentic or honest with you. But by being honest with yourself, you start to refocus your intention or your attention in creating a life that's more in alignment and more authentic with you. And this provides healing, real healing to occur. Real healing, because again, sometimes we become inauthentic with ourselves because we went through some trauma. So then real healing can actually start. And then you can start to learn more about yourself and start to make choices that are more authentic and more honest with you. And what doesn't feel authentic with you, you don't have to do anymore. The second tip is to reconnect back to your childhood and remember the things that you used to love to do when you were a kid. The reason for that is because when we're kids, we're actually in our purest forms, and we know what feels right for us, and we naturally do activities that or in alignment with our souls. We're very, very much connected to our souls at that time. If we don't have the right, environment to be able to nurture that or to help us evolve in those things that are natural to us, we again hide those things. And then we start to create a life that's not really authentic with ourselves. So this is why it's really important to begin this journey by connecting back to your childhood and remember the things that you used to love to do when you were a kid and start to do those things again. For example, with me, with my healing journey, when I thought about my childhood, I remembered how I used to love to sing and dance. So I started to do those things again. And the more that I did that, the more that I started to reconnect to a part of myself. I started to feel happier. I started to feel more hopeful. And I started to remember other things that I forgot that I really loved to do and enjoyed. So the more that I practiced this, the more that I started to reconnect back with my authentic self. And the great thing is that that part is always inside of us. It's always been there. We just got to learn how to reconnect with that part again. The third tip that I have for you is to start to face your fears. For me, in my experience, when I started my journey of going within and reconnecting back to my authentic self, I used to have this fear of being seen. And which is ironic because, what I do is about being seen. But I used to have this fear of being seen by others because I was afraid that people wouldn't like me or they would judge me. And so what I started to do is I started to do things to help put myself out there to get past that fear. The other fear that I had was of speaking up, like actually speaking up for myself, like using my voice. So what I did is at that time I was going to church on Sundays, and at the church that I was going to, they would offer people the opportunity to just talk about a spiritual topic every Sunday. So you would just sign up, plan your little speech and then actually give the speech. And that's what I did. Ended up signing up. I did this speech. I think it was about intention. And I literally got in front of people and I was like with my little cards, and I was in front of a mic and I was so scared. But I did it, and at the end when I did it, I felt so much better. And I got a few compliments from people. They said that they found what I said very insightful and very powerful. It was really awesome, and I started to feel better about myself. The other thing I started to do is make YouTube videos. And actually, that's how my YouTube channel started, because I wanted to get over my fear of being seen and speaking my voice. And this is literally where my channel started. And now, I'm fine making YouTube videos. It's not a big deal to me anymore. And the other fear that I had was of being alone. So what I started to do is I started to go out by myself. I started to go, to restaurants by myself, to cafes by myself. And I started to also go to movies by myself. And after a while, I just got so comfortable with it that it was not a big deal. And I do remember one time when I went to the movies by myself, and somebody was looking at me kind of weird, was she going by herself? And I'm like, it feels nice to do things by yourself. Now in my life, I really enjoy doing things by myself. The point here is that the more that you start to face your fears, the more that you reconnect back with your authentic self, the more that you start to really find yourself. And the great thing is that a lot of the fears we have are actually just illusions we created in our heads. And when you start to dissolve those illusions, you can start to really see and find yourself again. The fourth tip is to change the way you think about yourself. And this tip kind of goes with the one before this, because sometimes we have these really distorted ideas about ourselves that are actually not true. So we need to learn how to deprogram those ideas and put new programs in our minds that actually are healthy for us. So you need to start to dissolve those distortions that are not true. Because again, a lot of the things that we think about ourselves are actually not true. A lot of the thoughts we have about ourselves come from traumas or experiences that we have. So another thing to do is to actually work through your traumas, get the support for somebody to help you heal your traumas. And know that, if you're thinking about these things, if you have these thoughts about yourself that are not healthy and they're due to traumas, you have to be really gentle with yourself. And that's really important to remember. I've personally been on my spiritual journey for 10 years now, and I can tell you that I still have some traumas that I'm working through. And it's really important to know that doing this inner work and reconnecting back with your authentic self is a long life journey. You don't ever stop. There's always things that are gonna come up, and it's important to check ourselves because there's always parts of us that are distorted. And it's our jobs, you know, as the persons that we are, as the people that we are, to work through them and to heal them for ourselves. When we were kids, we didn't have any control over that. We just kind of were thrown in, the family we were thrown in, and we just dealt with it the best that we could. But as adults, we have choices. So if you are continuing to have these negative thoughts about yourself and you're not working or doing that inner work, that's a choice. And you can always change it when you're ready. You can change it to start to shift the way that you think about yourself through doing that inner work and healing your traumas. And you also have to remember that it took years for us to get brainwashed with these thoughts about ourselves, whether it's, we created them on our own or society imposed it on us. It took years for that. It's going to take years to heal it and recorrect it. And the great thing is that the more that you do that, the more that you start to reconnect back with yourself, you start to feel happier, more whole, more hopeful. And the real self feels that way. The real self feels compassion. It feels hopeful. It feels solid in itself. The last tip that I have for you, the fifth tip that I have for you, is to make sure you have the right support. And you have to remember that not everybody has the courage enough to do this inner work. So you could be working to dissolve the fake self and connect more with your authentic self, but not everybody is going to be doing this work. And you want to surround by people that are doing that inner work. The people that do have the courage to look at themselves and be honest with themselves and do that inner work. And this is really, really important. The awesome thing is that if you're interested in doing this inner work, I actually created a really awesome and fun archetype guides test to help you learn more about yourself. When you take this test, you'll find out what one of your top archetypes is, and you'll learn more information about yourself and how to use that information to reconnect back with your authentic self and how to apply it in your life. And if you have a business and you're looking to do that with your business, how to do that with your business as well. And if you don't know what archetypes are, I highly recommend that you watch my video on archetypes, which I will post below as well, so you can watch that. But basically, archetypes are patterns and tendencies that repeat, that basically live in our unconscious mind, and we can see them in the outer world through art, through books, through culture. So these archetypes that live in the unconscious mind are always there whether we realize it or not. So when you can find out what your top archetypes are, you can become more aware of what's actually going on in your unconscious mind, what pattern is going on your unconscious mind, and why you do the things you do, and how to work with those archetypes to help you create a more authentic self and a life. So for me, one of my top archetypes is the magician, which is, for me, the alchemist as well. So for me, becoming aware of the magician and how the magician operates in my unconscious mind has been super helpful because it's helped me to understand myself more. It has helped me to understand why I do the things I do. And it's also helped me to understand how to navigate life, because I navigate life from this archetype a lot. Like, I see the world from this magician archetype, this more transformative space, this more magical space, and how to actually be authentic with myself as I navigate and through the journey of my life. And the other reason it's been really helpful is because I've also used this archetype to build my business, to build my brand. Because again, that archetype is very strongly operating in my unconscious, and it's always been there. It's always going to be there. So the more that I learn about the archetype, the more that I learn about myself, and the more that I can connect to that part of me, that authentic part of me. So those are the 5 reasons why being fake is dangerous and how to break free from this toxic cycle. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe to help me grow my channel, and also so you'll get more valuable content like this every week in your inbox. If you're interested in being authentic with yourself, or connecting back with your true self, or building a brand from this authentic self, I do share more information about that every week. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.